Well, good evening to everyone. I hope and I pray that you are having a good day, and that if you have not had a good day, that God will do what he always does and put a tremendous ending on a terrible beginning. We want to thank you for joining us once again for Life Sessions. We've been talking about reimagining life, and we've been talking about that from various perspectives. One, we talked about reimagining life as it relates to our faith. We've also talked about reimagining life when it relates to our family and our relationships. And tonight we're going to talk about reimagining life in the area of our finances. It is an area that each and every one of us have to deal with, and it is an area that many of us are silently struggling with. And we want to make sure that we are relevant as it relates to growing and ministering to people here at Life Church. And so tonight, I'm grateful to God for persons who are experts in this area, who are going to have a very candid conversation about this with us. I invite you, I implore you to use the comment section to put questions in there. We'll be keeping an eye out for questions. And if you have a question, we will certainly pose that question to them. We'll have some conversational questions that I've already sort of talked to them about that they're prepared to expound upon. But tonight we want to have a real conversation about finances. And so I want to welcome tonight Pastor Janine Stubb Taylor, who is joining us. And I want to welcome Mr. Nick Abrams, who is joining us tonight as well. Both of them are extremely gifted, and they're important to Life Church. And here's the reason why. Mr. Abrams actually was one of the first trustees of what was then Kingdom Harvest. And we weren't in such flourishing times then. And Mr. Abrams helped navigate us through those times and did it with a spirit of servitude and expertise that has really propelled us and set the foundation for us to get to where we are today. And then many of you probably remember Pastor Janine as we were trying to navigate through our process to acquire property when we thought it was just going to be a building. She helped us not only locate but get financed the Life Church campus that we worship in every Sunday. And we're grateful to God for the fact that they've sown such tremendous seeds into this ministry, and we continue to experience and to have the opportunity to be grateful to God for what they've done in the life of this ministry. And so I welcome them tonight. I know that they're going to help all of us, no matter where you are in your finances. We can always be better. And so I want to make sure that we have a very frank conversation tonight. I want to make sure that everybody understands that this conversation is a biblical one, as well as a reality in each and every one of our lives. It's in Ecclesiastes chapter number 10, verse number 19, where these words are written. It says, "The officials make a feast for enjoyment instead of repairing what is broken, and serve wine to make life merry. And money is the answer to everything." And one of the things that I am challenged with as a pastor, and I believe that they're going to help me with this in this area, one of the things that I'm challenged with as it relates to church is that the church has a very interesting relationship with money. We want our churches and our ministries to be one that are top-notch and excellent. We want them to put on programs and initiatives that are top-notch. We want our buildings to be ones that aren't falling apart. And yet at the same time, church is one of the only places where we struggle to give our money. We struggle to invest in our churches. And it is amazing to me that that happens. Now, I understand why it happens. It happens because there have been a few, more than a few. There have been some who have trafficked in corruption, and it makes us leery of sowing into church. But tonight I want to try to not only debunk that, because we know here at Life Church, we're very transparent as it relates to our finances. And thank God we are doing well. We can do better, and we will be doing better. But I want us to really be thinking about the fact that if we're going to be top-notch, if we're going to be 5-star, we've got to make sure that we are sowing into the Life Church ministry that we all are a part of and want to be a part of. And that means that in our individual lives, our finances have to be at a place of stability. We always talk about and we hear about overflow in church, but no one ever talks to us about discipline as it relates to our finances. And so tonight, I'm not here to talk to you about overflow. I'm not here to prophesy that you're going to go to the car dealership tomorrow and get a car. I'm here to say it is time for us to be disciplined. And as we are disciplined, God will honor our discipline.
Yes, yes.
And that will give us access to additional things. Here's the last thing I'll say, and then we'll sort of give Pastor Janine and Mr. Abrams an opportunity to introduce themselves. As we're talking about this tonight, I want you to think about this. We, especially as African Americans, have no problem investing in stuff that is very short-sighted. You know, I am taken aback when I ask people to register for conferences or to participate in trainings that cost money, and they actually have to think about it. But the same amount of money you might pay for a training, or the same amount of money you might have to pay to go to a conference, you're paying to get your hair cut or your hair done, or you're buying Jordans and Yeezys or whatever those things are. You're investing in those that are short term. And so we look good, but we're empty. We look good, but we are stagnant. We look good, but we are not moving forward in our development. And so tonight I want to address those things. I want to make sure that we deal with those things. But let me give Pastor Janine and Mr. Sorry, I must call you Minister.
Let's not go there, Pastor. Let's not go there.
You're prophesying.
And Mr. Abrams an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into our conversation for tonight. Pastor Janine?
Good evening. Can you hear me well?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. It is my pleasure and honor to be with you. Pastor Hall, thank you so much for the opportunity. The Life Church family is no stranger to me at all, and I'm still waiting to get to see this new location.
Yes.
As soon as I get to Maryland again, I want to make that happen. But it is my pleasure and honor to be with you this evening. I am now Pastor Janine Stubbs Taylor, the co-pastor along with my husband of Living in Faith Together Fellowship Church, if you will. Also, let me just share a little bit about me. I feel like I'm at home with Life Church, but in case there's those of you that may not be familiar with me, but I am a career banker with over 35 years of financial industry experience. I am an author, a four-time author as well. I have partnered with religious organizations, from startup religious organizations to some of the mega churches across this country, probably for over 20 years now. I now reside in South Carolina, so I'm coming to you from the beautiful 75 degrees today, but it is beautiful. But most important, that's enough about me. I really just want to be able to pour into everyone this evening. And as Pastor, I think you said it best, we're short term. How do we reimagine our finances for the long term? So thank you for having me this evening.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As Pastor Hall said, Nick Abrams, just a little bit about myself. Born and raised in Baltimore, graduate of the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. Also a graduate of St. Mary's College of Maryland, where I studied economics and did a concentration in business and African American studies. I have been in the finance industry for 23 years. Worked for various companies, and in 2009 started my own firm. We went through a rebrand last year, so we are now known as Opulentia. We're headquartered in Hunt Valley, Maryland, but we have clients all over the country. Some of our biggest clients are Chick-fil-A owners, operators, and we service them as far north as New York, far south as Georgia, and going far west into the Midwest area. A little bit more about me. I am married. My wife's name is Leah, and we have two sons, Nicholas II, who is 14, Aiden, who is 9, and they both attend the McDonough School in Baltimore County, and we reside in the Green Spring Valley section of Baltimore.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you to both of you for being here tonight. Let's dive right into this conversation. The first question that I want to ask you is, what would you say are the pitfalls that people fall into when it comes to handling money appropriately?
I'll go first on this one. I would say honesty. People are not honest about their financial situation, and that just trickles down. I'll tell a story about this. I had a lady years ago came to the office and was, she wanted better handling on her budgeting and finances, and we worked together a little bit. But every time I would see her, she had a new Louis Vuitton bag. And I'm not a small one, a huge one. And the last meeting we had, I remember she was saying, she was on her way to Italy and France. I was like, okay, you're not serious. So honesty is the big thing. If you know you're having problems with your money, don't be afraid to ask for help. We are all gifted in certain areas. There are things that Pastor Hall can do, Minister Janine can do, that I cannot do, and vice versa. So my gift is in the area of finance, but there are other things that I can't do that I get help on. And so I tell people all the time, do not be afraid to ask for help. We all have a journey to go through. But the first, really understanding that you need help and being willing to accept that help is the key. And just being honest about your situation. I'll tell one thing, my wife will probably kill me for saying this, but I remember, we were having money problems years ago, and she bought me a pair of David Yurman cufflinks for, I think, Father's Day. Very nice cufflinks. I love them. I took a picture of them. I put them on Facebook, and I told her to take it back. I said, "You can't afford it. We can't afford this right now." And she called me all types of names. But he took it back, and that was that season. We could not. We're in a different place now. But we just had to be honest and say, "Hey, it's not about looking good. This is the reality of the situation." So those are some of the key things that once you are honest with the situation, then you can begin to recover from it.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
I think my goodness, that was I think that's a perfect segue. I think honesty requires us to have a reality check. Okay. And a reality check, every time I think about it, it takes me right back to Matthew 6:24, that no one can serve two masters. Okay. For you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. That's a reality check. That's reality check. And the reality check, once you're honest and you have a reality check, it's going to cause you to shift your mindset. And the mindset is the underlying or foundation of your mindset, really, in my opinion, in my experience as a financial consultant, is what is your perception of money? Because that's where the honesty and the reality really rests. What is your perspective of money? If your perspective on money is a good decision, is based solely on what financial gain or reward is in the decision, then money is your master. Then money is your master. And money will continue to control you and your decisions. And it will cause us to not pause in the moment and be really honest with ourselves. And back to what Nick just stated, great example, that reality check will cause you to change the decisions that you're making as relates to what your money is touching. So the greatest pitfall is honesty, reality check. But what is your true perception of money? And I'll be honest with you, if the only thing that we're learning, even as adults, if you will, is how to spend money, then we need another reality check. A different lesson needs to be learned, even as adults. Even as adults, I have in my first book, and after we wrote for you, try to start remembering what you have in all of them. But there's an executional model, and then I'll turn it over to you. But I think this is a great place for us to start. When you think about being honest with yourself independent of anyone else, not any of your friends, not your neighbors, not your coworkers, but having an honest and reality check with yourself. I call it in my executional model. So it's a process that all of us need to go through. And the first one, do we have a sense of awareness? Where am I in this economic environment that we're in, this rising interest rate environment, okay? Where am I? Do we have a sense of awareness? That's an honesty check, right? And once you say, okay, this is where I am, This is where I fit. This season of my life. Admit it. It's okay. That's being honest. Admit it. And I promise you, once you admit it, accept this is where I am. It doesn't mean this is where I'm going to stay. But today, tonight, at 7:22 p.m. or March 1st, 2023, this is where I am. Have that awareness, admit it, accept it. But here's the key: take some accountability. And once you take some accountability, it will force you to move into action. I call that my executional model, because if we talk about it and we do nothing about it, we're just having another conversation this evening. So, as a national certified financial advisor, I can pour into you, I can educate you, I can motivate you. But if you do nothing and push it into action and execution, it's just that a conversation this evening.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I will add to that. Another thing is we have to stop being afraid of money.
Fear.
There's a lot of fear about money, and it's brought down by generational. And have to understand that it's okay to have money. It's okay to make money. You don't want the money to control you, as Janine said, but we have to stop being afraid to talk about money. And that's in our families, in our inner circles. Because when you look at successful people, that's what their conversation is about. Money, what are we doing with it? What are new opportunities? How can we grow? Can we work together? Those are conversations where you look at, your high net worth people, that's what they're having. They're not afraid of money. They're not afraid to invest it. They're not afraid to save. They're not afraid to give to charity. Those are some of the things that they're talking about doing. Hey, how can I set up endowment funds? How can I help this organization? What can I do to help people go to school? These are the conversations that should be had. And a lot of times we're scared to talk about money. And, our conversations are about, buying, as you said, Pastor, the Jordans and all that other stuff. Yes, we look good, but it's got to be more than just looking good, because that's just a momentary gratification. And there's much more to this than that.
Yeah. Both of you made me think about culturally, as African Americans, how do we address this in a way that gets us on a different trajectory? It's an assumption, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I wonder if the African American community has a different perception about money than our, Caucasian brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters, Jewish brothers and sisters. And if so, what do we do to reverse that or get us on a different trajectory? Because we continue to hear about the disparities in society, and we're always, lumped in the lower portion, even though we know that there are just as many poor white people as there are poor Black people. But we're always going to be in that, or postured as those people who are struggling. How do we culturally begin to turn a corner so that the next generation of African Americans aren't afraid of money, or don't have the wrong perception, or don't have that honesty, or do those reality checks?
I'll answer this one first. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to say this. I've said it publicly. I've said it privately in sessions. The moment that we release the spirit of entitlement, okay? The moment that we release the spirit of entitlement, let me kind of tell you what I mean by that. All right. It took COVID for us, for our country to be shut down in so many ways. Okay. For us to realize how important family was, a commodity that we can never put a price tag on, right? Time that we can never put a price tag on. Okay. But when you think about it, with this rise of financial advice, which is why we're having this conversation tonight, there are so many. If you go to any social media platform, any site, having a conversation about money is no more a taboo. Pastor Hall, you open up and you said, we need to, talk about money more often as far as the religious organization from the pulpit. There are over 2,130 verses in the Bible that talks about money. Now, if any of it was money important to Jesus? I mean, scripturally, over 2,130 scriptures in the Bible.
Wow.
Because once we really understand that God owns it all, and he's just trusting us to be a steward, and back to something that Nick said that was so powerful, money is to be made, managed, and multiplied. If you could just understand those three concepts, money, and I'm going to say in the economic environment is to be made, managed, and multiplied. From a biblical perspective, God uses money three ways: as a tool, test, and a testimony. So no matter what the outcome is, all of us are going to have a story on the other end. Mm-hmm. But the moment we get to the point where we understand that, all of these platforms that we have out here, just think about this for a second, okay? There are top resources, and Nick, you would know this, all this money, wisdom, apps, and all of this. And despite all of that, every app you can think of, okay, Americans are increasingly becoming financially illiterate. All of these apps that we all are signing up for, and this is my takeaway. I think it falls in two areas. One is perhaps is due to the large number of resources available, or the lack of comprehensive guide that ties together all the moving parts as it relates to our finances. There's no one financial decision that is independent. Every financial decision that you and I make, it impacts something else. And then two, people are either too overwhelmed to make a decision, or they don't know how to make the information work for them. Apps, who are you calling? Who are you having a conversation with? Who are you trusting? Who are you being honest with? And if we can just step back and shift the mindset of thinking just because I work 40 hours or just because I can afford it, I should buy it. That's the entitlement spirit. And go back to Nick's conversation about in terms of the conversations that other cultures are having. That's because other cultures have understood, and they have mastered the concept of unlocking generosity. Greed. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say it. Greed. And greed not by the Webster's definition, greed by my definition. Whenever I teach in webinars and seminars, I teach the concept of greed. If you hold both of your hands open like this and you close one, how can anything pass through you? Asking for blessings, God open up a window of heaven and pour out a blessing so much that'll overflow, and I won't have enough room to store it. Think about this. How can anything flow when one hand is closed? Why is that hand closed? The hand isn't closed because we aren't, we're not concerned about, I want to get more. The concern is, if I give it away, Nick, how am I going to replenish it? That's greed. That's why we cannot unlock generosity. That's why we can't have the conversations about go back to church. Understanding how we invest in ourselves. I'm a firm believer that if we take care of God's house, God will surely take care of our home. But we have to release this spirit of entitlement first.
Yeah. Man, that was excellent. That was excellent, Janine. What I will say, there's this hidden conversation in the African American community. It's sort of the middle class curse. Mm. When you look at the families, there's generally that one person who's made it in the African American family. Compare that to other cultures, it tends to be many. So that one person has to take care of the whole family. Something goes wrong, that's the person you call to help out with money, because you got that one person there. So there's a strain, because yes, you have that one person that has made it, but now that one person has such responsibility for everybody else that they really are putting themselves in the bind trying to take care of all the rest of the family. And that's one of the things that we've got to deal with. The other thing is really understanding and not being afraid to take an opportunity or take a risk. I see so many talented people who are stuck in jobs and they don't want to move or change because, well, that's my safety net. I can't do that. I'm scared. but there's so much more out there. And if you take that step, God would put so many more opportunities in front of you. I mean, and I tell people, look, if you know your income is X and your bills are Y, there's two choices here. You got to make more money or cut your expenses.
Right.
You can only cut your expenses so much. And after you've cut your expenses and you still can't make ends meet, then it's time for you to move to something else. Do a second job. As we talked about being comfortable, the gig economy, that's a big thing. People sit there, especially somebody that's single with no kids, and they tell me they don't have any money. I just always look at them like, you got to be kidding me. What else do you have to do? Go work a second job. Go to school and better yourself so you can get that promotion. Go start your business. There's so many ways. There's so much money flowing out here in this world. It's ridiculous now. There are ways people are making money doing all types of things, the YouTubers and everything else. So there's no reason for you not to have money. But the thing is, what do you do with it, and not being afraid to step out on faith and do something that God has probably called you to do, but you're scared to do it because you're sitting in a job and you're comfortable and you don't want to exert any energy. Your brain don't want to put in the work. You want someone to sit there because that's all right. I got my good job. I'm not going to leave that. I'm here, and they like me here. They give me a little 1% raise, and the boss told me I did a good job last week, so I'm dedicated. I'll work hard here, but I won't work hard for myself, or I won't try to shoot for another job that'll pay me more money because I've been here all this time. We've got to change that mentality. We've got to understand that the opportunities are out there. We've got to take advantage of them. And if we don't, things aren't going to change. Yes, there's a huge wealth gap. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We know that, like I said, a lot of us are first, second generation college graduates. A lot of us are first generation college graduates. We're starting to see a wealth transfer now, but for other cultures, they've had that wealth transfer for 2, 3, 4 generations. So we're just starting to do that. So we're behind the curve. But also, there are enough of us in key positions that, we can start to change that wealth gap. And it's a shift that's starting to happen. But we still have a lot of work to do. And it's really about the families. When somebody does make it, we can't just have that one person being successful in every family. We've got to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to help take care of, other family members. And so it's getting better, but there is still a lot of work to be done in that area.
Yeah, to the point about families, and then I'll shift to the second question. But I want to hear your thoughts on, we hear a lot that marriages tend to break up due to finances.
Oh, yeah.
And your story with Leah, thank God she took them back and she came back home too. But how do people, as they're preparing to become that one, how do people deal with the finances? I know, there are some people, I've heard a husband and wife team talk about, well, she deals with the bills, she does the finances, all those sorts of things, or we have separate accounts. I don't know that there is one perfect way, but what is the foundational concept that you believe is necessary in order to ensure that finances don't become a point of contention in a marriage?
Can I start on that one?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
So what's a little interesting, and thank you for the confirmation, by the way. But right before COVID, I actually developed a non-workshop, and it's called Money and Marriage. And now it's in the process of being put in the book. It'll be my 5th book. But it's Money and Marriage, the mystery now solved. The mystery now solved. So I'm going to say this. I hope we're all adults that's, and amongst us tonight. Okay. So this is from my perspective. All right. And I think you have to look at this from 2 different lenses. Your perception of money and marriage is going to be very different if it's your second marriage. You're not going to, you shouldn't. And most people that I counsel, they don't approach it the same way they approach money in their marriage, if you will. So a couple thoughts that come to mind. All right, Nick, make sure you take my call tomorrow when I call you when I say this, okay? All right. Pastor Hall's gonna take my call. He'll probably
Yes, ma'am.
let me pray for Pastor Janine, okay? But I want you to think about this. When we decide that we're entering into a relationship, we spend a lot of time getting to know the person, their personality, how they treat their family, right? We also, let's be honest, are they successful? If I'm at A and he's at A, will we get to be together? Okay. Is he physically healthy? Is she physically healthy? But we never stop to ask to see when you're about ready to say I do, or you say yes to that engagement ring. Okay. Do you stop at what point do you say, I'm marrying the person, but everything that comes along with him? If he's been married before, if he has children, right? His career. Have you even looked at his personal financial statement? Have you looked at his FICO score? Have you looked at do you know that when you say I do, you're marrying his debt? And or lack of, maybe, or he's marrying your debt and or lack of. So while we want to look at I'm going to say it, everything on the outside, and then the physical health of the person, longevity, physical health, how come we're not looking at the financial health of the person that we want to spend the rest of our lives with? Because we are afraid of what we may see. You think just because he or she lives in this nice apartment or own this nice house, you don't know if they're on the brink of foreclosure or not because you haven't talked about it. I'm going to say this, you'd be surprised at why people get married. You don't know the hidden motives behind marriage. Wow. Because some men and women are struggling and they think because two become one, we can do this thing together. Marriage continues to be the number one reason for divorce. Yep. And why? Because we don't want to be honest with each other. We don't want to have reality check with each other. Okay, when was the last time a couple that you've counseled, Pastor Hall, or I've counseled, okay, in premarital counsel, that actually came and sat with me and brought me a personal financial statement and a recent FICO score credit report from all three bureaus? Yeah. And shared it amongst each other. If he has or she has student loan debt, you need to know about that. What happens when you go to buy that house together? And you have this discovery that, ouch, his FICO or he or she, that his credit is, how do we, and then you're in it, you're too far in it, you're 2 feet deep, no more shallow water. Because you haven't talked about it. It needs to be a I do conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm very passionate about this because especially culturally. Why are we not having this conversation? And even once you say I do, you'd be surprised at how many couples have separate accounts, like you stated. And it's not, there's no magic recipe to what works in. It's really what works in your marriage. Right. Okay. But most of the time, how it works, it just organically evolved that way. This is how we started out. When I met him, I didn't have a joint account with him. So we just, he knows his responsibilities. I know mine. What happened the day you come home and the gas and electric bill is cut off? Or the car is repossessed? This is real talk. Mm-hmm. Or you get to the point where you have that discernment and things aren't right. Your spirit is leading you that things are a little challenging here, but no one wants to talk about it until you get to the point where you're in divorce court. And it's because, I'm trying to save, he spends, we can't have a joint account. All of this could have been avoided. And we take that same level of financial distrust into the next relationship. And it becomes a cycle. And that's why we have so many marriages that end up in divorce. It's a cycle. And a lot of it starts with how we see our mother and father handle finances in their households when we're growing up.
Woo! So someone told me a long time ago, and this is somebody who has been married at the time, probably 40, 45 years, that there's a big part of marriage that's a business. Yes, the love is great and blah, 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 the flowers, dancing through the fields, all that's nice. But there's a business side to a marriage because it's a partnership. It is a partnership. And what I tell people, you have to understand that where you start is not going to be where you finish in this thing. There's a lot that goes on through the middle, and you have to reside to yourself. Are you really ready to take this journey with this person or not? Because no, everything's not going to be rosy. It can be you have the perfect financial plan set up and somebody loses a job. Are you going to leave because that person's lost their job, or are you going to stick through what goes along with that? What happens when somebody gets sick and can't work? Are you going to be there through that journey? And so that's a conversation that a lot of people don't have. We look at the good stuff, or we see somebody, oh, that person has potential, so we're going to grow together. This is going to be great. We're going to be and I hate this term, a power couple. I'm like, really? Come on, man. We're going to be the next power couple out here and doing that. Right? Okay, that's great, but things happen. Once again, I don't mind being transparent as somebody who has been married to be 18 years in June, has gone through ups and downs in finances personally. It can be a challenge. I am not a pleasant person to be around when my money's not right. My wife will tell me that in a minute. So now I've had to make sure over the years that my money is right. But when there are times where it's not right, I am not a happy person because I like nice things. I like to be able to do what I want to do. So when that is taken away from me, I go to a whole nother bag. But we stick through that, and we've gone through good and bad times with it. And you come out, you just make the best of it. But it's not a one size fits all. We talk about the accounts. Yes, some people joint accounts work, some people don't. But I do encourage most couples that you have to be honest and have the conversation. And you have to be flexible, understanding that, yes, this person has a great job today, that can be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you can't base your whole relationship on the status symbol of being with somebody who has a certain title and all this stuff, because that can easily be taken away just like that. And then what are you going to do? I mean, you can leave, but what was your marriage really built on at that point? Yeah. So that's sort of my 2 cents on the marriage piece. But yes, it is. We see a lot of couples break up. We know a lot of friends that break up because of marriage. But I think, like Janine said in the beginning, what are you really in here for? Why are you doing this? It's not just the outside. It's a lot more. You have to put God first. You got to pray. And when times get hard, and they are going to get hard, I don't care who you are. You're going to go through some hard times. That's life. Yes. You're going to have to pray because it could be something totally unexpected. One day, everything is great and fine, and you are the power couple. And next day, you 1 month from getting kicked out of your house and your car getting repossessed. How do you fight through that? And you can fight through that. That's God will put you in, but God will bring you out as well. So, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and this is an excellent conversation. We have about 15 minutes left. I want to try to combine our second and third question, so that we can maybe give people some concrete steps. So as we think about reimagining our finances and our financial status, what are some of the steps that you recommend people take to, one, address the financial challenges they may be having, but also put them on a different trajectory as it relates to their finances? What are some of the steps that people can take?
I think the first step is, you want to go, Nick?
Go ahead.
No, I think you should go first.
Yes, ma'am. I will go first. I always say, of course, the first thing is pray.
Yes.
The second thing, after you've prayed, then you want to figure out what your goals are or what your why is. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are your goals? And they don't have to be these big, lofty things, but if it is to get finances in order, if it's to buy a house, car, start a business, whatever, you have to put those goals down and put it down in writing. And then I tell people, then you pray some more. And then really the next steps are really about achieving those goals. So I always tell people, get help. There are so many resources out here now that you can go to. Some of them are free, some will cost you money. There's something happening soon as the Maryland Cash Campaign. It's going to be an all-day event, and I don't know the date, but it's an all-day event where they do pro bono workshops on finances. They even do your taxes. So there are so many of these different things that are out there that are available. You can start there, but also ask people who's on your team, who's on your financial team. I'll go back to anybody that's successful has not done it by themselves. They have a team of people around them. And I tell people, your basic team should be a financial planner. It should be an accountant, CPA, estate planning attorney. Because those are key areas that you need to have in order. You need to, financial planner to help plan out your future, a good tax or CPA to help with your tax situation and tax, we're in tax season now. And then also, as we talk about transferring wealth, estate planning becomes a key. You have a will, trust, power of attorneys, all that stuff in order. So those are things you look at. But then also definitely always remember what your why is. And that's hard to do because we get distracted a lot. All of us get distracted. We kind of start down this path, something else comes up in life, and then we kind of forget about it. You want to remember and write down what your why is. All of this is about the mental right now. If it gets in your mind and you're determined to do it, then the other steps as far as seeking help become easier to do. I always tell clients or people, you once you kind of got the goals and that in place, then you want to come up with what we call a spending plan. Not a budget, a spending plan.
Yes.
And there's a difference. A budget is something you put together on an Excel spreadsheet. You got these numbers that all end in zero, that look very good, and everything adds up nice and neat that you don't follow because it's not realistic. A spending plan lets you prioritize what's important to you and what you're going to spend money on. So here's what I mean by that. There are some people who can't live without their Starbucks. So if you know you cannot live without Starbucks, don't put down a budget where there's no Starbucks in your budget. You're going to break that. As soon as you walk into work, somebody make you mad, you're going to break that right away. But if that Starbucks is important to you, fine, put it there, spend your money on that, but you have to cut back in an area that's not as important to you. So now it becomes more realistic to you about what you're spending your money on. Spend your money, what makes you feel good, what's important to you, but then you got to adjust. So people always laugh at me. I always have an old cell phone. I still got an iPhone 10. Don't laugh at it. I just don't like spending money on phones. I don't. That's my pet peeve. That's one of the things I will not be. Mine is acting up now, so I know I've got to go get one. But I wait to the very last minute to get a phone. That has just been one of my things. But I'll spend money on something else that's more important to me, but a phone is not. So I tell people, think about those things that are important. That's where you put your resources. But those that are not as important, cut back because we can't have it all. Understand that you can't, have the big house, big car, the fancy clothes, the everything that you want if you're on the financial constraints. So prioritize and then go to work on it. Attack it. Don't be afraid of it. Go hard on it. And then you start to see those results. And when you see those results, you reward yourself. But the hardest thing for a lot of people is to get started. Once you get started, and that's with saving money, the hardest thing is to get people to start putting money somewhere. Now, once they start seeing their money in the account, they're like, oh, you feel better about yourself. And I tell people one of the goals in life, shouldn't be, should be, you go from I can't afford it to is this a good use of my money?
Yes.
So you're in a place where you can afford it, but you're thinking, do I really want to spend my money on this? And when you reach that point, it's a whole different ball game in life for you.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Wow. I'm glad you went first on that one. As I was listening to you, it's Hebrews 13:5. Hebrews 13:5 just started resonating in my spirit. It says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. Keep your lives free from the love of money. And while you're doing that, the word of God says, and be content with what you have, because God said he'll never leave you and never forsake you. So I'll start with, if we know that God owns it all and he is the provider of all things, then why are we worried?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we concerned? The worry and the concern actually is a direct correlation to, are we being a good steward over God's resources? So we become worried and concerned because, as I stated previously, God uses money as a tool, test, and a testimony. So the tool is considered the resource, the tangible money. The test is, are we going to be a good steward over that particular resource in which God is entrusting us with? And it starts with, are we going to acknowledge his house first? Most of us have our greatest financial challenges because we don't understand the covenant of tithing. I'm going to say it again. Tithing is training wheels to giving. We can't get to the conversation Nick was talking about because we don't even understand the concept and the covenant of tithing first. Right? You start off by saying this is a biblically based conversation. So if it's a biblically based conversation, then we have to start with the root and understanding that as Christians, we are obligated. There's a difference between a liability and an expense. A liability is an obligation. Tithing is an obligation. An expense is optional. Going back to what Nick said, whether it's your priority or your preference becomes optional. Tithing is not an option. But if we could just start there. And I believe that for every kingdom vision that God imparts in your pastor, then if we understand the foundation of the covenant of tithing, then we can unlock generosity, and kingdom financial provision will never be a problem for any branch of Zion. For none. I believe wholeheartedly that churches should never, ever, ever have financial challenges. Because if we understand that if we can just secure the foundation in our personal homes and understand the concept of and the covenant, should I say, of tithing, and we all do our part and own it, then the church is the greatest resource to really bless the communities in which we serve. Am I right, Pastor?
Yep, you're right.
So when we understand that, that's just if we get to a place of satisfaction in simplicity, satisfaction, going back to entitlement. I and I'm gonna go back to the old, and I like nice things. I went to school. So I can, and I'll say this, a degree does not guarantee you this amazing job. It does not. Let me just say that right now. I don't care how long you've been on your job. All of us are a pink slip away from not having a job, from being jobless. Okay. So I'm a firm believer of sources of streams of income. Because guess what? We become a hostage to any organization because I've been there for 31 years. I'm set. The devil is a liar. Sources and streams of income. I will ask you, what is it that you would do each and every day that will bring you the greatest joy, passion, fulfillment? You would be walking in your purpose if you were never earned a dime for it. That's what you should be doing. If you follow your passion and your purpose, the money will follow you. I am a living testimony of that. And if you do it out of the goodness of your heart, knowing that you're making an impact, then God will open up opportunities that you could never even imagine. But we have to get away from the fear. And once we start understanding the concept, and once we start realizing that this is where God is calling me, I've heard it said as the DNA approach. Nick, I think you've heard of this, the DNA approach. We got to get to a place where, I wish we can bind and declare right now that this DNA approach no longer exists in any of us. And the DNA approach is the do nothing approach. If I do nothing, right, then I don't have to be accountable for it. No, we're forced to do something, else we become stuck. So a couple thoughts. Nick, you gave some amazing behavioral conditions, things that we can do, decisions we can make immediately. But when you start about it, the first place I would say is start looking at retiring some debt, right? Start saving aggressively. I heard Nick say that, right? Find creative ways to increase your income, sources of streams of income. All of us have gifts and talents. The Bible says, whatever you do, do it with your hands and put your hands to work. Some of us don't want to get our hands dirty anymore. Okay. And not only that, but invest as much as you can. And Nick, you said it, I'm a firm believer in automating your finances, the systematic savings rule, right? The 80-20-20 rule, 80-10-10 rule. I'm sorry, the 80-10-10 rule. There's so much out there, and all of which is in our control. Everything that Nick has shared or I've shared, it doesn't matter what your financial condition is tonight. You can start where you are. But it starts with making a decision and shifting the mindset and having conversations like this, just to start to impart that, you know what, we're not stuck. Culturally, we're not stuck. If we're stuck, it's by choice. Not because the opportunities aren't there. It may take us a little while. And one other thing I'll say, stop expecting an overnight, what's the word I'm looking for, Nick? Help me out here.
Gratification, success.
I like that. How long have we been in this financial condition that we're in? Okay. And let me just say this, not everyone that's with us this evening, your financial condition is challenging. But let me impart this. I love having conversations with individuals that say, well, my finances, I got it all together. The key word for you tonight is sustainability. Okay, anything could happen. Are we, and not that we're claiming it, but are we prepared? And that's what happened with COVID. Most of us in this country, we weren't prepared. So if nothing else, it's a season to recover all, but recovering all also requires us to unlock some generosity also. Thank you.
Excellent. So I want to thank the two of you for a very, very insightful conversation tonight. I know that I've been watching online and people are, hearting and thumbs up and just commenting in the section. So I appreciate the two of you sharing tonight. I know that you guys do this for a living. So if persons wanted to reach out to you after this, how would they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I can be reached. You can reach me at my email address, which is Janine, JANEAN, at jstaylorconsultingllc.com. You can also go to the website, and that's JS Taylor Consulting. Okay. And I will share this with you. I hope Nick would agree with me. We are passionate about what we do. Okay. Our desire is for the betterment of the kingdom and anyone that we come in contact with. So I mean this from my heart when I say this. If you call myself or you call Nick, be prepared to make a change. Be prepared to be honest. Be prepared to hear the truth. Okay. And just know that it's coming from a heart of I'm going to say a heart of restoration. for all of us, for all of us. Nothing brings me more joy than the calls I get, because individuals have executed the readings and the workbooks and actually started breathing life into the concepts. And you're getting the call, and oh my goodness, I understand, the proportion of my FICO score. I understand the 35% and the 30% and the 15% and the 10%, the 10%. I understand that now. I understand the 30% utilization rule. And because I understand it now, I can execute. And now, guess what? I was able to actually refinance my house and get a rate that normal people are getting, right? Those are the calls that bring me joy. Because then I know that I am, I'm going to say it, my work isn't in vain, but I know I'm operating in my calling at the same time. So be prepared when you do call. Okay, because we're going to challenge you to be the best financial you could ever be.
All right, so I can be reached. The office number is 410-740-6844. Once again, 410-740-6844. You can also visit our website, www.opulentier.net. That is OPULENTIA.net. Please feel free to reach out. If it is, and the beautiful thing about this, we have a lot of partnerships and people that we work with. So if it's a situation that we're not an expert in, we have several other people that we can say, hey, this person is more suited for this situation. We can refer you to somebody else. But don't hesitate to reach out. Take that step when you're ready. And as Janine said, you've got to be ready and serious, because, when we deal with somebody, we're dealing with people who are serious. And also our partners, when we refer people out, it's our name and reputation. We want to make sure, hey, these people are ready to, hey, either make that change, take the next step, go to that next level. And so just really invite you, you can go to our website. There's a lot of information on our website.
Yes.
And if you're just in the information stage right now, that's fine. If you just want to say, hey, Nick, are there some books I can read or some places I can go just to kind of get myself together in this area, then be happy to, give you a couple places to start out with. Everybody's at a different place. So I don't expect everybody to call tomorrow morning and be ready to make that change. It takes time. As Janine said, this didn't happen overnight, so it's not going to be resolved overnight. Everybody is in their own individual place and space, and work through it.
Pastor Thomas, may I have one more minute? Do you mind?
Sure.
Just a minute. Thank you, Nick, because I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Okay. One, while we're talking about us as individuals, there may be entrepreneurs that may be amongst us tonight as well. That is indeed my niche. I've been in corporate banking for 35 years now. Jesus Christ. Corporate banking for 35 years. I didn't ask permission to do this, so I'm going to ask for forgiveness to do this, if that's okay. Only because Nick mentioned books, okay? And as an author, all of my books are financial books, biblically based financial books. So the Non-Fruits of Finance is really about your personal entrepreneurs of excellence. It's a book and workbook for entrepreneurs. Children's book, Does Money Really Grow on Trees? That's my near and dear to my heart. And my latest release in December is Recover All, 21 Days to Financial Fluency. Pastor Thomas, Lord, Pastor Hall. I'm calling you Pastor Thomas, right?
Yes.
Pastor Hall, I will make sure that I will mail you a copy of all 4 books so you will have them. Amen.
We appreciate it, and we will definitely push your books. We are posting your websites and your phone numbers as well. So I do hope that, Life Church guests who are watching, I hope that you take these resources, these avenues, and these opportunities to really reimagine life. You don't, and thank you, Pastor Janine, you don't have to be stuck. We make a decision to be stuck. And so I want to encourage you tonight to, as Mr. Abrams said, sit down, pray about it, start making a plan, and start seeing yourself better than where you are today. And when you see yourself there, start writing down exactly how you believe you're going to get there and what your why. If you can find out why you're here, if you can find out why God created you and operate in that, undoubtedly, you will not only find, God will also send provision. And that is a blessing that we continue to see God do in each and every one of our lives. Again, I want to say to Pastor Janine and to Mr. Abrams, thank you so much. You have sown seeds into our past, our present, and our future, and we're grateful to God for you. Tonight, before we close out Life Church, you know what we do, that we sow into these moments. And so I'm going to ask you, as I do each week, to sow $10 into this moment. You heard that tithing is the training wheels to giving. Tonight, we're not tithing, but you are sowing into what we've received. And undoubtedly, you have received some phenomenal information. I have as well. And so there are several ways that you can give. Of course, you can use the Life Church app, and you can, if you've not downloaded it, I encourage you to do so. Go to your app store. If you're like Mr. Abrams and you still got an old phone, I don't even know if you can download that. But you can download it, look for Life Church Administration of Maryland, and you'll be able to download our app. You can also use the Givelify app, look for the Life Church logo, and you'll be able to sow there. Or you can go to our website, which is www.mylifechurchmd.com. Look for the give option, and you can sow there. If you want to mail a check to us, you can send it to 6107 Deer Park Road, Reisterstown, Maryland, 21136. And we'll receive your gift there. Again, thank you to both of you. I know you can't see the comments, but people are grateful for your teaching tonight and really have been blessed. And I knew that they would because this is an area where the two of you are extraordinarily gifted. And I am grateful to God for connecting me to the two of you, and pray that He continue to just blow your minds as you do the work that He's assigned to your hands. So we're going to close out tonight. I pray that everyone, don't forget, tomorrow night is our interactive life sessions on Zoom with Elder Graves. And then on Saturday morning, Tone and Release with Deacon Jones is at 10 o'clock. Our dance ministry starts their first rehearsal this Saturday. So make sure that you're there at 11 a.m. And then on Sunday morning, remember our Christian education class at 9 a.m. and then worship at 10:30. We are looking for God to do something great. It's the first Sunday of March. And so, of course, that means it's Holy Communion. We will be there to celebrate all that Jesus has done and continues to do in our lives. Again, everyone, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And we believe and continue to state that life is better when we do it together. Have a great night, everyone.